So we've talked about the science of the cardiovascular system. We've talked about the science of strawberry, what it contains. But we wanted to recognize that in spite of what I've shared with you on the talk today, if you were to go to just sort of mainstream media or mainstream science, the problem is there's an attack on freedom. Because if you really want to educate people and you want to get down to the system of endothelial dysfunction or endothelial function and talk about the fact that the goal is to support the endothelial, right? Nitric oxide, et cetera, and how, let's say, strawberries, we're going to get to how it may help it, or diet and nutrition. The reality is the existing establishment does not really support this alternative discourse. So there's really, as I say, really an attack on freedom. And this is what we're saying. We've established the truth. We can do science. But if you have an attack on freedom where pharma essentially promotes their singular pharma solutions, they own most of the media, and there's constraints on medical doctors that we're going to talk about, it's hard for this truth to come out. So that's why I encourage all of you to share these videos, because we're presenting the science so people can make their own decisions. But the reality is, in the establishment world of mainstream science, there's really no holistic understanding, and all of it's just really centered around cholesterol, cholesterol, cholesterol. All a doctor will tell you is lower your cholesterol, lower your bad cholesterol. That's it. That's all you'll get, this reductionist narrative. And the emphasis is always on treatment, not on prevention. And there's an over-reliance on drugs, statins, blood thinners, etc. By the way, when I was in India recently, as I mentioned, the pharmaceutical industry is moving into these indigenous countries like India. We found a number of people are just in their mid-30s that are all on blood pressure medication. And India has about 300 million middle class, imagine, and they spend about, let's say, 1,000 rupees in a year on blood pressure medications. Imagine having 300 million middle class out of the 1.3 billion people all on blood pressure medication. You're looking at around 300 billion, right? 300 billion rupees. And if you divide the 300 by 75, that's roughly about, just there, it's about 5 billion, right? $5 billion per year just from that small group. Okay. So there's a real, if you follow the money here, is to really not discuss the cardiovascular system as I've shared with you today. But this is sort of the reductionist narrative. And there's no consistent guidelines on diet or exercise. In fact, there's no discussion on alternatives by and large. And if you go pick up the newspaper, the news, what you'll see is these kinds of ads, right? Here's the guy who invented the artificial heart. They have him as a spokesman for Lipitor, or, aspirin, or Arbitrar, or Eliquis, or Entresto, right? I mean, aspirin, I suppose, is a little bit less invasive in some sense, but this is what you'll get. And you can see the explosive growth of these industries year over year over year in terms of the number of sales. This is around $60 billion in drug sales, for example. That's what's projected in 2023. So the pharma companies have a real intention of promoting drug-based solutions versus teaching you about the cardiovascular system. And moreover, here's something very interesting. In our research, we found out that even it's a big admission that cardiologists that came out in cardiovascular business lack education and the willingness to discuss nutrition. A recent study found in 2017 that most cardiologists lack heart-healthy diet and up-to-date nutrition education. In fact, here's a PubMed article. There's a deficiency of nutrition education in cardiology. And cardiologists, frankly, just neglect to refer patients to dietitians. And the recent study also found most cardiologists lack heart-healthy diet and nutrition education. So think about what I'm saying here. So what you find here is that fundamentally there is not only is there promotion of drugs as a mainstream establishment, but there's also the lack of dietary education that the doctors are getting. Okay. So this is what we call the constraint on freedom, because you choke information. All right. So this gives you a political angle. It gives you a systems approach. So when you have an attack on freedom, a lot of the knowledge I'm sharing with you here really never gets out of the mainstream public. All right. So that's why it's important that we support the work that we're doing here.